It is election day, and we are just about an hour away from the polls closing.
There are several races we're watching tonight, including the race for Uvalde mayor. Tonight, these three people vying for the spot after current mayor Don McLaughlin stepped down to run for the state legislature.
Let's go live now to Uvalde, where our Lee Waldman is standing by with a look at what we can expect from this race tonight. Lee.
Myra, Steve, as long as one of the three candidates running for that mayoral seat walks away with 50% of the vote, the city of Uvalde will have a new mayor leading its community tonight. In these last couple of hours, we've really seen the lines start to ramp up at some of those polling locations before polls close at 7 o'clock. Right now, we're outside of the Uvalde Leader News, where journalists who work there will be writing on this whiteboard behind me, updating those election results throughout the election night tonight. Now, like I said, three candidates running for that mayoral seat tonight. They are Kim Rubio, Cody Smith, and Veronica Martinez. Rubio is the mother of Robb Elementary victim Lexi Rubio and a local journalist. Smith previously served as Uvalde mayor and a city council member here. And Martinez currently works as a teacher at Uvalde CISD. Polls close in an hour. According to the Uvalde Leader News, 1,430 votes were cast during the early voting period that ended on Friday. Total 17,458 people are registered to vote for today's election in Uvalde County. Now, this special election for the mayoral seat opened this July when longtime Mayor Don McLaughlin announced he was running for the District 80 Texas House seat following Representative Tracy King's announcement that he was retiring at the end of his term. Now, like I mentioned, the polls are closing at 7 o'clock. Right then and there, we'll start getting some of those early voting numbers. You can follow on KSAT.com. We'll be updating those numbers throughout the evening. And of course, we'll have a full wrap up of all the election night excitement tonight on the Night Beat. Live in Uvalde, Lee Waldman, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Lee. We're also watching a number of propositions that are on the ballot tonight.
And one of those is Proposition 4. It does a lot of things, but the main goal is to give property owners some relief from taxes. If passed, the state would give over $7 billion to school districts in order to lower property taxes. This amendment also raises the school district homestead exemption, which is part of a home's value that cannot be taxed to pay for public schools. That exemption would increase from $40,000 to $100,000.
Another amendment is Proposition 6. If passed, this would create the Texas Water Fund. That fund will be used to help finance water projects in the state. The Texas Tribune says if created, it would be endowed with a $1 billion down payment to support projects like fixing the state's aging, deteriorating pipes, acquiring more water resources, and reducing water loss.
We will be following tonight's election on air and online. If you want to stay up to date on the election results, scan this QR code you see here on your screen to head to our Vote 2023 page on KSAT.com.
District Attorney Joe Gonzalez trying to cut down on a 6,000 case backlog of unindicted felony cases. Bexar County commissioners today gave the DA the go-ahead for a plan to put more prosecutor hours towards getting cases ready for a grand jury. But with his office's struggles to keep prosecutors, Garrett Berger asked how much morale may be at play in all this.
Down 13 to 15 lawyers at the moment, the Bexar County District Attorney's Office says it needs to switch things up.
Because we're never going to be able to fully get in front of this when we have the amount of vacancies that we have.
DA Joe Gonzalez plans to use nearly $300,000 his office isn't spending on empty positions and use it to pay prosecutors or volunteer for extra work reviewing cases. This so-called high-risk intake team would focus on violent crimes, repeat offenders, and cases flagged by police and prosecutors.
The idea of this team is to work to have these cases ready and have them indicted sooner than later.
While he put much of the blame today for his staffing issues on burnout, KSAT has also reported on outgoing employees' claims of a toxic work environment. In an email last month, the head of the very department this plan's meant to help chastised employees for not handling enough work. Intake and Grand Jury Division Chief Emily Angulo wrote to her team, quote, "Being on vacation is not an excuse for your stats to plummet." Gonzalez seemed to walk that sentiment back some today.
There are some people that are workaholics, and this chief is an example of a workaholic. But we have to have a life balance, a life-work balance, and we have to recognize that.
In a statement released through a DA spokesman, Angulo said her email was, quote, "not meant to disparage, On the contrary, it was meant to motivate and to increase the intake division's output, which she claims it did. Gonzalez thinks the extra man hours will put a dent in the indictment backlog, too.
We can comfortably expect to be able to resolve 2,000 to 2,500 cases of the 6,000. So, we're talking about a third of our backlog.
Gonzalez says the plan is temporary and will be revisited in 6 months. Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Meantime, in court today, testimony began in the trial of a man accused of killing 3 people in 2016. Jacob Brownson is accused of shooting those 3 men, Pedro Garcia, Matthew Martinez, and Anthony Rodriguez, in the apartment they lived in on West Rampart Drive near North Star Mall. In opening arguments today, the prosecution said Jacob Brownson grew up with one of the victims and that he, his wife, and his kids had been staying in that same apartment. While no possible motive has been given, the state alleged that Brownson put his wife and kids inside a van and then went back into the apartment to shoot the 3 men.
Goes back into that apartment and then shoots and brutally murders these 3 individuals as 2 of them are getting ready for work and one of them is just sleeping on the couch.
Testimony is expected to resume tomorrow morning. At some point, Brownson's wife will be called to the stand. If he's found guilty, Brownson would automatically be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
And many school districts across San Antonio and South Texas scrambling to hire certified armed officers with a new law now in effect. That law requires armed security officers on all public school campuses during regular school hours. This morning, Southwest ISD swore in 13 new officers to meet the requirement. But for larger school districts, getting to the requirements has been more of a challenge. Northside ISD approved 20 new officer positions after the bill was enacted. They currently have more than 30 vacancies in its police department.
Our goal will always be to try to hire additional officers. However, right now, at this moment in time, there is a huge deficiency in personnel statewide, and of course the lack of funding.
We went on a full court press to hire police officers. It was kind of a challenge because, the bill was passed late June.
We also checked with Northeast ISD. The district created 46 safety specialist positions to meet the requirement and has filled 22 of those positions.
A Texas organization is reporting record deaths from intimate partner violence. That's as the Supreme Court is deciding whether some domestic violence offenders can have guns. An advocate tells our Courtney Friedman this decision will have life or death consequences. It's part of our series Confronting Domestic Violence, Loving in Fear.
In 2022, 216 Texans were killed by intimate partners. It's the second worst number since the Texas Council on Family Violence began collecting data.
We know that the presence of a firearm is one of the most lethal indicators.
Texas Council on Family Violence Community Response Manager Makisha Hooper says of those deaths, 70% of victims were shot, and 35% of those shooters were not legally supposed to have a gun. There are federal and state laws prohibiting gun ownership for people with domestic violence convictions. Texas extends that law to those with protective orders against them. The problem is enforcement.
There's not a lot of action following that to remove the guns and store them as long as that prohibition is in place.
2 years ago, the Bexar County Commissioner's Court approved funding for one compliance officer that civil judges can call upon to check in and follow up on perpetrators who are not supposed to have guns.
But even that big step forward could change pending on a Supreme Court case. A man under a protective order went on a shooting spree, yet argues his right to bear arms was violated. TCFV and agencies across the nation have released statements begging the Supreme Court to side against him.
It's one of the keys in addressing domestic violence is accountability for the abusive behavior.
She said a protective order gives victims time to make a safety plan, but with the gun legally in the picture, that victim is 500% more likely to be killed. Courtney Friedman, KSAT 12 News.
If you or someone you know is struggling with domestic violence, there are resources out there to help. We have a long list of them on our website at ksat.com/domestic violence.
After state lawmakers couldn't come to a deal on key parts of Governor Greg Abbott's agenda during the third special session, well, tonight they're starting a fourth one. The governor announced the fourth special session, and it started a little over an hour ago. Governor Abbott also says The same agenda in place for this time around: school vouchers and border security. It's the first time in the legislature's history that lawmakers have had 4 special sessions in a year with a regular session.
Look outside with live cam this evening. It's not quite dark. Not quite, but I know we're going to get there at this time pretty soon. But we're waiting on some rain, Adam.
Yeah, way to keep it optimistic, Myra. Not totally dark.
Yeah, just a little peak of sun over there.
Mostly dark.
Yeah.
The beautiful clouds overhead this evening set the stage for a nice sunset. Very beautiful sunset, and the pictures are already rolling in on KSAT Connect. So let's take a look at one that we just picked up here. You go to the KSAT Weather Authority app, lower right, KSAT Connect, little camera icon, and you can upload your photos. Beautiful shot of the tower at sunset this evening. Those mid and high clouds set the stage for a nice colorful sunset. As we go through the evening, partly cloudy, more of the same really. A bit humid out there, southeast wind 5 to 10, 71 at 10 o'clock midnight. We're at 68, and some fog tomorrow morning. But then the rain sets in later this week with the cold front arriving Thursday. We'll time that out for you and talk about how much rain we could get in just a bit.
All right, thanks, Adam. Now, from this view we're about to show you here, yeah, it's plenty dark. This is I-35 at Loop 410. You can see a lot of brake lights headed away from the camera, very slow going as people are headed home during the 6 o'clock commute.
That does not look like fun.
No.
Later this week, here on the News at 6, Doc Talk. It's our series featuring your medical questions on any subject. Scan this QR code to let us know what questions you want answered by local doctors. KSAT 12's Doc Talk airs Thursdays at 6:30.
In the Northeast Independent School District, a socially conservative political action committee helped get 2 trustees elected to the board. The impact of Parents United for Freedom continues to reverberate throughout the district as board members bicker over who to appoint to a vacant trustee spot. Jacqueline Klein, who is backed by the same PAC, has 3 votes but needs 4 to be put into that position. The months-long stalemate is not surprising to a top political correspondent from the Texas Tribune.
As long as they're continuing to elect people, as long as they're continuing to shape the conversation at the school board meetings, I think that they'll see a reason to remain active in raising money and engaging in school board races.
Coming up in just a few minutes, KSAT investigates Parents United for Freedom and the strong ties it's been able to establish in the large school district.
And coming up next, a KSAT follow-up to Know My Neighborhood Westwood Square, the gift to a local nonprofit that fills a much-needed kitchen with delicious smells, and it hopes to fill hungry stomachs as well. Next. A string of break-ins across the northeast side have put neighbors there on edge. We take those concerns straight to the San Antonio police to see what they're doing to help. That story and more tonight on the Night Beat at 10. Last month, we kicked off a new series, Know My Neighborhood, in the heart of Westwood Square. Residents there deal with a lack of grocery stores and are no strangers to food insecurity. And a nonprofit is stepping up to feed families that live there. The Madonna Center has fed hundreds of kids and seniors for years now, and thanks to a $250,000 donation, they have a brand new kitchen that'll serve more than 400 meals to people in need every day.
It's been a long time coming. The kitchen that we've had has been in place since the mid-1980s, so definitely excited.
By the way, the next installment of Know My Neighborhood, it's next Wednesday at 6. Live from the Alamo Ranch neighborhood.
All right, let's turn to the forecast now. We are waiting on a cold front and some pretty good rain. How much longer do we have to wait?
Well, we have to get through tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be another day in the 80s, and then we've got the cooler air settling in. So get ready for it. 80s again tomorrow. Cold front arrives on Thursday. That's our transition day, and then turning cooler, rainy, and even windy on Thursday, and then high temperatures take quite a hit as well. Let's get right to it and take a look at the big picture in terms of those high temperatures. 84 tomorrow for the high. Then we get to 74 briefly on Thursday. Only then to have high temperatures in the low to mid 60s Friday through the weekend, and that's going to last into next week as well. So noticeable changes are on the way. 70s and 80s across most of the state right now. We did have a couple locations briefly hit 90 earlier today to the north of us, but The colder air, that's off in the northern tier of the U.S., some 30s and 40s, still pretty far away from us, but it will gradually be working its way southward. Tomorrow's still the warm day. Notice we're in this orange and red color. And then on Thursday, we do the transition. That's our transition day on Thursday. So in terms of the actual temperature trend on Thursday, it's going to start more like what we've had. We'll be in the 60s tomorrow morning, 66 at 7 a.m. By 4 o'clock, we're at 84. Thursday, we start the day in the 60s. We get up to 74 by noon, but that's when the front hits, and then the temperature plummets thereafter. I mean, it drops down into the 60s for the afternoon. So usually you see temperatures rise into the afternoon. They're going to drop a little bit as we get into Thursday, not only turning cooler, but also windy. This is not going to be as strong as the Halloween front that we had shortly before Halloween. Here's a look at our futurecast in terms of the wind. Notice at noon, the front moves into San Antonio. Hill country gusting 25 to 30 miles per hour. Locally, we're not going to feel it much, but by 1, 2 o'clock, that's when the wind really picks up around here. We're talking wind gusts probably approaching 30 miles per hour for Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, and even lingering into early Friday. We'll notice those higher winds out of the north. All right, let's talk about our setup when it comes to rainfall. This is good. We've got this Pacific moisture coming in. Obviously off the Pacific, some upper level activity, with it some energy as well. And that's good because we need that upper energy and that moisture to help saturate our atmosphere and the energy to help stir things up. We also have this dip in the upper level flow over the Pacific Northwest. That dip is headed our way. So this is going to team up with that cold front to enhance our rain chances on Thursday. This is what we like to see. Generally, this is going to be a light soaking rain. We're not talking thunderstorms here, so don't anticipate rain gauges overflowing or anything like that. This is going to be a good soaking rain. Thursday, for the morning commute, we're out along the Rio Grande and even into the hill country. That's where it's going to start. And then by the noon hour, I think it starts to become more widespread and more of us get in on the action. And it's just going to be intermittent, coming and going throughout the afternoon, evening, and nighttime, Thursday into early Friday. Overall accumulations, I do think, could get up to around an inch in some neighborhoods, maybe over an inch if you're lucky enough to get one of the heavier downpours. But as I mentioned before, we're not talking about any of the rain gauge filling rain here because most of it's going to be light in nature. And then we get into Monday and another enhanced chance of rain. Right now we've got that at 60%. Notice those morning temps back down in the low 50s, so we're not talking the 30s and 40s like the previous front, but still more fall-like, and you'll feel the change.
Yeah, definitely cooler. Thanks, Adam.
All right, he was drafted in Brooklyn, but he's making his NBA New York City debut in Manhattan. And what better place than Madison Square Garden?
Right, Madison Square Garden. Yeah. Oh, my gosh, it's got to be so excited for 19-year-old Victor Wembanyama to be playing in New York, the Big Apple, Madison Square Garden. Yes, the last time he was there in the New York City area was for the NBA draft, and Doug McDermott thinks it's going to be a pretty crazy night at MSG. Plus, UTSA, that three-headed monster at running back, they will be tough to stop. Coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy in there for his first game at the Garden. But we got to try not to entertain that stuff. Yeah. We got a job to do, and that's to win a basketball game and not get embarrassed like we did tonight.
Doug McDermott knows the crowd at Madison Square Garden will be a bit crazy tomorrow night when Wemby takes the floor in Big Board Sports. After losing at Indiana last night, the Spurs are now New York City, resting up before playing the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. Now, the last time rookie Victor Wembanyama was in New York was back in late June for the 2023 NBA draft at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And that's when his life changed forever after the Spurs picked him with the #1 overall selection. Wemby was all over the Big Apple leading up to the draft. He threw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium. I mean, he was the toast of the town. But that will change tomorrow night when the Knicks host the Spurs.
Yeah, for sure. No one wants to beat him more than New York fans. So no one wants to beat us more than them. And I think like I said, it's going to be crazy in there, but it's going to be a good test for us. We're a young team. We're going on the road after getting beat, the worst we've gotten beat in a while. So I think we got to look forward to this challenge going in there.
And that game is tomorrow night, 6:30 at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks are favored by 9.5. Saturday in Denton, the UTSA Roadrunners racked up a season-best 287 rushing yards to beat UNT 37-29, pushing their conference winning streak to 15 straight. Kavorian Barnes rushed for 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rocco Griffin added 65 yards and a TD on 10 carries. Robert Henry tacked on 43 yards and a score on 10 totes. Their three-headed attack at running back in Kavorian, Rocco, and Robert will be tough to stop.
I think it's really just a great thing. We all on the same team, being honest with you. End of the day, we all playing against Rice. Rice has to play against 3 running backs that are all ready to go. A lot of times, some teams have that main back, and they see slippage. So I think it's good that we have 3 backs that are really solid and stay ready.
UTSA will host the Rice Owls Saturday, 6:30 p.m. on Military Appreciation Night. UTSA leads the series with Rice 7-3. For the first time in 9 years, the Texas State Bobcats are bowl eligible. Saturday, they beat Georgia Southern 45-24 to notch their 6th victory this season. The 21-point win over the Eagles was the Bobcats' largest margin of victory ever in a Sun Belt home game. And tight end Connor Fox from Reagan High School got in on the fun, catching this 3-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter, putting the Bobcats on top for good, 14-10. After high school, Connor went to K-State and played in 9 games over 4 seasons, and now he's doing great things for Texas State.
Yeah, no, he's a big time player, and we knew that, once we got him. Just got to make sure and keep on developing and coming along, and great player, great leader, great person, and that's the kind of guys you want here.
6-3 Texas State will play at 6-3 Coastal Carolina this Saturday, 2:30 in the afternoon. Not only is Texas State bowl eligible, but they also have a shot at the Sun Belt Championship with 3 games left in the regular season. I believe they need to win out, and they need some help to accomplish that.
Exciting things in San Marcos these
Yes.
days. Yeah, Thank you, Larry.
And coming up after the break, a socially conservative political action committee helped get 2 people elected to the NEISD Board of Trustees, and nearly a third. Coming up, KSAT investigates Parents United for Freedom and its impact as the board tries to fill another vacant seat.